the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan. Welcome to you. Thanks so much for
Morning,
coming
Anna.
in. So, teachers are being offered a 6.5% pay increase. The teaching unions have come on board, say they're happy with that and they'll recommend it to their members. But how confident are you that teachers will accept that, given that it's still below inflation, which is at 8.7%?
I mean, it's the unions really that have got the best judgment on that, and they seem to be confident that their members will do that. But of course, it will have to go to the ballot. I do have a couple of cousins who are teachers who've been kind of keeping me in contact, and they all got in touch yesterday and were delighted actually with the news. So I'm hoping that they're indicative of the rest of the profession. I mean, you know, teachers do an amazing job. They don't want to strike. They want to be in the classroom with children. They know that children need to catch up. They know there's lots of things that they you know, they're absolutely vital, you know, to our children. So they do an amazing job. They want to be there. And I know they didn't want to strike, actually, as well. So I think, hopefully, with the unions recommending it, they will be back in the classroom.
So they're getting 6.5% pay rise. It's more than had originally been expected, which may be good news for teachers, but there's more money to find, isn't there? So are schools going to have to find that money from within their budgets, or are you, at the Department of Education, giving them all that extra money?
So what's always difficult about this is not the headline figure, but how it's funded. And if, for example, you said, well, you know, this is the percentage, but you have to fund it out of your own budget, then schools just simply couldn't accept it, because what that would mean is a head teacher would have to make a decision between, you know, giving somebody a pay rise and maybe making somebody redundant or cancelling a programme or something like that. And it would just be, you know, really difficult for them to do that. So one of the things that's made this really difficult is I've known all along that whatever we offer, we also have to offer to fund, not all of it, because there is some within the school budgets that they were expecting and they've budgeted for, but quite a big chunk of it. So in this case, we've had to find, you know, a significant amount of money, which we, the department, will have to, you know, send to schools to make it affordable for them.
So how have you found that money? Where's it come from within the Department for Education?
So what usually happens in budgets within the departments, and we have quite a big education budget, we do spend a lot of money on education. What usually happens is you have programmes which you estimate either the demand-led forecast or how quickly you're going to deliver them. And what happens in government budgeting is if you don't spend it all, and very often you don't spend it all because you overestimate how quickly you can roll things out, etc., then all that money usually goes back to the Treasury. And what's happened in this case, and the Treasury have worked with us to enable us to do that, is they've given us the flexibility to take those anticipated underspends and to move them into teachers' pay. So basically, we've gone through every single line, every single budget, painstakingly. I mean, you know, I've worked in business for 30 years. I've done this a lot, and we've gone through and we've anticipated where we will not, you know, we wouldn't meet the forecast, and we will move that into school funding.
OK, so if it's come from an underspend, that's OK for this year, but what about...
We've looked at future years as well. We've looked at future years. So we've looked at this year and next year, which are the 2 years that are left within the spending review. And then, of course, it gets consolidated into the spending review. And that's what happens every year with everything, actually. You know, everything that we have, which is a reoccurring cost, every spending review, of course, that's looked at.
And you say that's where most of the money will come from, but schools will have to make some adjustments themselves?
No, schools have budgeted. So what you look at in school budgets is, of course, they have anticipated that they would have, you know, some pay rises. So they all, and this was actually the problem when I very first arrived in the department, they'd all put 3% in the budget, and the Independent Pay Review Body came back with 5.4%. That was last year. That's the extra £2 billion that I had to get when I very first started the job. Now they've put 3.5% in, and the Independent Pay Review Body has come back with 6.5%. So they have some which they have within their budgets. There's something else we've done as well, because I always look at school budgets across the average, but of course there could be some schools, like maybe a smaller school that's got specific concerns. So we've also we've got a school support fund as well, and we've increased that by £40 million, so that if there's a school that's in exceptional circumstances, then we've increased the money that they can come and access.
OK, so teaching unions have accepted the deal. Junior doctors don't seem so happy. They've been offered 6%. The British Medical Association was saying yesterday that it amounts to yet another cut in pay cut in real terms. Junior doctors ongoing strikes at the moment, consultants due to go on strike next week. Where's this all going to end when the Prime Minister says there'll be no more talks?
Well, we can all see inflation. You know, the junior doctors are not unusual. We have all got the impacts of inflation on our household budgets, and every single person actually across the world, not even just across this country, has seen the impacts of inflation. And that is why we are very focused on halving inflation. You can't chase inflation, you need to get rid of inflation. So they are not exceptional in having inflationary pressures. We all have inflationary pressures, everybody does. But what we have to do is halve inflation, and we have to make sure, and it's been really quite difficult to do during these these times, is to agree a pay pay increase without adding to inflationary
well, a few
pressures.
months ago, the government was suggesting that any pay rises over 5% would add to inflationary pressures. Some of the pay rises going up to 7%. So has the government changed its view?
No, it's been very difficult to try and navigate this. And what basically has been key is not having any new borrowing and not raising new taxes, which could fuel inflation. It is a tricky balancing act. I mean, there's no doubt that has made this thing, trying to be fair, trying to, give public sector workers pay rises, but also trying to make sure that we halve, inflation. This is not easy. It's moving around, and there's lots of driving factors underneath that are moving around. It has made it more difficult, but I would urge the BMA, the independent pay review bodies have done a very thorough analysis, and they look at, rates of recruitment, retention. They look at all the other sort of professions or similar professions. So they do a very thorough job, and so. I think it's only fair that they should look at that and take that seriously.
OK, we've been reporting today on why so many children with special educational needs and disabilities are waiting so long for education and healthcare plans. They're deemed absolutely critical, but councils are only managing to issue half of them within the 20-week time limit. It's a failing system, isn't it? I mean, do you accept that the government underestimated the spike in demand and is failing these children?
The system is under a lot of pressure, and the core reason it's under a lot of pressure is the massive increase in demand. I mean, our special educational needs budget in the last 4 years has doubled. It's now over £10 billion. So it is under a lot of pressure. That's why we've put forward our special educational needs improvement plan, which does a number of things. It invests in more school places, it invests in more educational psychologists, more SENCOs. So there is a workforce plan that goes with that as well. But there's no doubt there's a massive increase in demand. And we know a lot more about special educational needs. We know a lot more about how to diagnose various special educational needs, what we can do to help children overcome them.
But this is failing them if they're not getting those plans.
It has put pressure on the system, and it is, we are training more educational psychologists, for example. That's one of the key skills that you need, but also 5,000 more SENCOs. We have recognised that, a doubling in 4 years is very difficult for any system to keep up with. But, we do, special educational needs in this country, we take extremely seriously. We have an excellent system, really, but it isn't keeping up with demand. That's why we have the SEND improvement plan. It's why we're putting more money into places and into supporting councils as well.
OK, just finally, I do want to ask you, we are putting out today the latest in our Westminster Accounts reports, and in that we've revealed that MPs with second jobs have an average wage of £233 per hour. That's 17 times the national average. It's all permitted, all within the rules, but do you think those rules are right? Given that teachers, for example, they can't top up their pay, are you comfortable about the rules as they stand now?
Well, actually, teachers can top up their pay with the National Tutoring Scheme, and they've been doing an excellent job of helping children catch up as well. But, I would imagine that those figures are probably just a small number of people who, you hear about these people, get lots of money for speaking engagements.
It's an average wage.
Well, but the average will be, I haven't contributed a single penny to that average, I know that. Obviously I have 2 jobs with the ministerial role as well, but the reality is that's probably a small number of people who are doing, speeches on the Speaker's circuit who are getting paid an awful lot. And yes, this is permitted, and they have to go through all the rules in Parliament, and it's something that's permitted, but I know that I'm not contributing to that average.
OK, well, Gillian Keegan, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much.